5 years after the world changed, the final boss appeared. The boss for Area Earth, the Frost Queen. If they can just defeat her, their lives will go back to normal. The top 5 players in the world, including Spectre Seo Junho, finally defeated the Frost Queen. But they fell into a deep slumber. 25 years passed. Spectre awakes from his slumber 25 years later. The legend awakes. A modern-day Captain America? Spectre wakes up 25 years later after defeating the Frost Queen and saving the world. Korean Player Association's press conference, Spectre's health is our top priority. Day of Heroes fundraising breaks record numbers. Seo Junho folded away the newspapers he was reading on his hospital bed. So? It's been 25 years. He'd blinked once and 25 years passed, just like that. The world hadn't changed much, so he wasn't exactly shocked. He'd first wondered if it was something like a hidden camera prank, but there was too much evidence against that. My muscles are gone. They've completely atrophied. Seo Junho stared down at his body, dumbfounded. His bones poked through. The body he'd trained vigorously for 5 years was gone, just like that. Spectre Neem. The president of the Players Association has come to see you. Wherever he went, the top doctors of the world spoke to him with their 2 hands clasped together. That was the least they could do to show respect to the savior of humanity. Seo Junho wasn't uncomfortable with this, because this is how he'd always been treated. Is the president someone I know? If he didn't, he would tell them to leave. It hadn't even been a day since he woke up. He didn't want to be bothered already. But the doctor said something surprising. Yes. The president spoke casually and said you were their friend. Friend? Huh. There weren't many who he considered a friend. Well, I suppose I'll know once we meet. Seo Junho turned to look out into Seoul, as if he was amazed. I suppose the world really has changed. There were many more skyscrapers, and magic had been used to get rid of the fine dust pollution. More than that. There wasn't a single gate in Seoul. It's the peaceful world that we wanted. Thinking of his comrades, Seo Junho closed his eyes and smiled faintly. What will I do now? The world had changed when he was 20, and he'd become a player and cleared gates. The only thing he knew how to do was to hunt monsters. I guess I'm unemployed now. It wasn't an unpleasant thought. With an unburdened heart, he took off his mask. The doctors covered their mouths, swallowing screams. Besides his Korean nationality, Spectre was a mystical figure whose name, age, and face were unknown. But to take off his mask so casually. One of the doctors spoke with a shaky voice. Why did you take off your mask? Huh? I don't need it anymore. Seo Junho said this as he twirled his trademark mask in his hands. The world is peaceful now. A shadow crossed over the doctors' faces. Seo Junho noticed the shift. What's with your reactions? No, that's... The doctors couldn't say anything and only glanced at each other. I'll explain. As the door opened, a put-together man stepped in. Upon seeing his face, Seo Junho's eyes went wide. He had a few wrinkles now, but it was a face he would never forget. Are you Deok-gu? The doctors turned their heads away as they held back their laughs. Ahem. The man turned to the doctors, his face slightly red. I want to speak to him in private. Yes, President. After the doctors trickled out, the president pulled up a chair and took a seat. His eyes started to water. Junho. You still look exactly the same. Even after 25 years, his friend was exactly the same. He was at the age when his skin started to wrinkle and his stomach started to stick out, but he still looked exactly as he did when he was younger. On the other hand, Junho's healthy body had deteriorated to be sickeningly skinny. The lingering doubt faded, and the president bit his lower lip. Wow. That voice. You really are Deok-gu. It had become rougher with age, but but it was the voice of his childhood friend Shim Deok-gu. Seo Junho stared at his friend who'd become a middle-aged man. He started laughing as he noticed something. Hey, look. I told you that M-shape was a sign of balding. You said it wasn't. That's all you have to say after. He'd gotten choked up in the moment. And Shim Deok-gu let out a sigh. That's right. The Seo Junho I knew was always like this. What kind of heartfelt reunion? Did you really expect that? Seo Junho was still gripping his stomach and laughing. 25 years. Pfft. It's been 25 years but there's still no cure for balding? The wigs are good. You can't tell the difference. I didn't wear one today because I was in a rush. Really? Then show me next time. You'll be surprised. Those two really did like to speak of such trivial things. Without a moment to breathe, they launched into another topic. Shim Deok-gu would start talking, and Seo Junho would peel clementines from the basket asterisk and chime in. A few hours passed like that. T/N in Korea. People are often given big baskets of fruit as get-well gifts. Shim Deok-gu smiled fondly. You rascal, you're exactly the same. Even after 25 years, the two friends who were born and raised together were still the same. Deok-gu had actually been nervous on the way to the hospital. He was scared to show Junho the adult he'd become. But they were still talking as freely as before. You're the same too. Though your stomach sticks out a bit now. You try getting old. Seo Junho spoke to a bashful-looking Shim Deok-gu. Now that you're not so tense anymore, tell me why those doctors reacted like that. There was no more avoiding the topic. Shim Deok-gu swallowed. The moment you guys defeated the Frost Queen. All the players received the same message. He looked out the window as if recalling the memory. Congratulations. The Frost Queen has been defeated. Safe zones will now appear on the area Earth. The whole world rejoiced. They didn't need to fight anymore. They could live peacefully like before. Players and non-players alike cried tears of joy. But the message didn't stop there. A dimensional elevator has been unlocked in the Pacific area. The second-floor frontier area has opened. The max level in the frontier will be raised from 80 to 120. Stay strong until you reach the last floor. What? What kind of shit is this? Second floor? So it didn't end with the Frost Queen? People fell into a panic. There was nothing else they could do. They thought it was the end, but it was actually only the beginning. Strong players, association presidents, and politicians from all over the world held a big conference. During the days it was held, the players kept receiving the same message. The only way to stop Earth's destruction is to go up the floor. Earth's destruction. Frightened by the ominous phrase, the people came to a decision. For now, they would have to send a scouting team to the newly opened second floor. So? Seo Junho asked this in a low voice. Hearing the anger and dejection in his voice, Shim Deok-gu carried on. The second floor was a land of opportunity. It had abundant resources, new magic, and new techniques. We were able to harvest a great amount of resources and knowledge from there, and it's the reason Earth is in such an abundant state today. That's not what I wanted to know. There's 10 floors in total. Shim Deok-gu cut him off. That's what you wanted to know, right? The dimensional elevator has buttons for floors 1 to 10. So if there are only 10 floors, Seo Junho relaxed a bit. He and his teammates had taken 5 years to clear the first floor and defeat the Frost Queen. And if it's been 25 years since then? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they should have at least reached the 7th floor by now. But he didn't expect even that much. At the time, the difference in skill between my team and the other players was huge. There had been an immeasurable difference between them. That was why only 5 people went to Antarctica. Anyone else would only be a burden. And since the difficulty would have increased. Realistically, they've probably only reached the 5th floor or so. Finishing his calculations, Seo Junho looked back at Shim Deok-gu. So what floor are we on? Shim Deok-gu opened and closed his mouth a few times before squeezing his eyes shut. Feeling nervous, Seo Junho pressed him on. Hey, why won't you say anything? There was a long silence. Shim Deok-gu let out a long sigh and opened his eyes. In the past 25 years, all we've cleared is the 2nd floor. Upon hearing that, Seo Junho's mind went blank. All he did was lay on his fluffy bed and stare at the ceiling. Finally, he spoke again. I don't have anything to say. It's been 25 years, 25. How could you only clear the 2nd floor? I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses, but there's a reason for this. All right. Having sat up, Seo Junho stared expectantly. Well, say it. If anything, I'm curious what kind of stupid reason it is. The Frost Queen's nucleus. As soon as the words left his mouth, Seo Junho started to tremble. Not noticing, Shim Deok-gu continued. The 3rd floor resembles a volcanic region. Most players can't even withstand the environment. We decided that it's impossible to launch an attack and search for any possible means to withstand the heat. And there's an altar where the lava originates. If we freeze it with the Frost Queen's nucleus, the environment will change. Did you find it? Shim Deok-gu hung his head and covered his face with his hands. I'm ashamed. We searched the nest countless times, but we couldn't find it. Of course they hadn't. Because it had been absorbed by Seo Junho. Seo Junho rolled his neck and stretched his arms. There's nothing else you could have done. I guess it was just bad luck. You understand? Even after we wasted all your efforts? Shim Deok-gu looked touched. I didn't notice when we were younger, but was he always this mature? At the same time, the 2 friends felt embarrassed for judging the other 2 quickly. The Seo Junho he knew would have thrown a fit, but he currently had a pure look in his eyes that didn't hide his guilt. Everyone makes mistakes. We have to understand each other. I'm glad you feel that way. So if I also make a mistake, you have to be understanding, alright? Of course. Shim Deok-gu looked at Seo Junho warmly. Quietly avoiding his eyes, Seo Junho pondered to himself. How can I tell him without being scolded too much? They talked for 8 hours until the neon signs in Seoul flickered on. Feeling hungry, Shim Deok-gu checked the time and spoke. Wow, it's already this late. Aren't you hungry? Wanna grab something to eat? Seo Junho shook his head after a moment. I'm fine. Rather than that, I have a favor to ask. A favor? What is it? I heard the Seoul History Museum is super famous. He meant that he wanted to go visit. Shim Deok-gu knew why. This rascal, he misses his teammates. Actually, he knew that he'd ask and had already made preparations. Even though he acted aloof, he treasured his friends as much as himself. Slide. Shim Deok-gu pulled out a bracelet and placed it on the bed. Seo Junho blinked. Wow, technology sure has come a long way. Is this the famous Seoul History Museum? Very funny. This is Vita. It's similar to a computer. Live interpretation, calling, internet, maps, payment. You can basically do everything with it. Sounds fun. So why are you giving this to me? As soon as he put it on his wrist, Shim Deok-gu started laughing. I'm going down to the 1st floor by the stairs. Reporters, politicians and players are crowding the area, so it'll be more bothersome for you to come with me. You can just tell me to take an elevator. Why make it so complicated? Ahem. You can make most payments with Vita, but use this if you need cash. Diagu pulled out a big stack of bills. Hey, this feels kind of weird. I feel like I'm getting allowance from an ajusi. Shut up. If you go to the back of the museum, there's a door with restricted access. What's the password? I registered your iris. You've gotten better at these things. It's been 25 years. I wouldn't be the president if I didn't improve. Seo Junho looked at his friend with a new light. Come back to the hospital when you're done. The doctors want to monitor your condition for a while. Your wish is my command. I'll see you tomorrow then. All right. Shim Diagu stood up to leave. But before he stepped out, he looked back 3 times. Why do you keep looking back? I still can't believe that you're back. You've gotten weirder with age. Hurry up and leave. Diagu left the room while laughing as Seo Junho threw a pillow at him. I should get ready too. He took off his patient gown and wore his clothes, which had been cleaned. There wasn't a huge difference in fashion in 2049. That's a relief. I was worried that tights or something would become popular. Well, it was obvious from looking at Diagu's clean suit and the doctor's gown that not much had changed. He left his room and got on the elevator to the first floor. By the stairwell, Diagu was surrounded by a huge crowd. Click. Click. How is Spectre's health? Is there nothing wrong with him? Was it really Spectre? Keeping his identity secret is an abuse of power by the Player Association. The world has the right to know. When will you be holding a press conference? He answered calmly. Not looking the least bit nervous. The look on his face was familiar as he answered questions with confidence. He really was a good president. You rascal. Good job. Seo Junho left the hospital with a small smile on his face. There were numerous taxis at the station in front of the hospital, but the driver's seats were empty. What? Did they all go out for dinner? Seo Junho crouched by the sidewalk, waiting for the drivers to return. A moment later, a sweating businessman ran forward. Geez. So much to do. He took a seat in one of the empty taxis. It took off. I'm sure there wasn't anyone in the driver's seat. Watching the taxi drive off, Seo Junho inched toward another. He carefully opened the door and took a seat. As soon as he did, an automated voice spoke. Please choose your destination. Seoul History Museum. Departing. The taxi started to move. Whoa. This is great. I really feel like I'm in the future now. As he looked around with an amazed expression, he spotted a small pamphlet. After the self-driving taxi was commercialized 18 years ago, the rate of traffic accidents have dropped to 0%. 0%? Wow, this world is amazing. The car was comfortable to ride in too. Feeling better. Seo Junho opened the window as he smiled. The cool wind felt good on his face, and he took in the sight of Seoul's nightscape. The time was 8:20 p.m. The streets were filled with office workers in suits and young college students. It had been a rare sight when the gates had appeared. Back then, we never knew when gates or monsters would show up. He felt content as he watched the streets, and the taxi soon arrived at its destination. As he paid with Vita, he was met by a large park built with white stone. The courtyard of the museum was full of couples on dates and families who were out taking walks together. Something caught Seo Junho's eyes as he watched the children run around. Hey, isn't that my mask? The children were wearing plastic Spectre masks. When he looked around, he found a stand selling them. He stepped closer, feeling curious, and saw a small child pulling on his parents' sleeve. Please. I want it. I want the Spectre mask. Be quiet. I bought you one last time. Last time was the Skya mask. Shush. Stop making a scene.
Please.
TL/N crying noise ik how to TL. Then Jin Ho can live here. Mom and Dad are going home. The child started to lay and cry on the ground, begging for the mask. Feeling a bit conceited, Seo Junho went up to the seller. Do the heroes' masks sell well? Of course they do. They're my most popular product. Especially. As if they were telling him a great secret, the seller looked around. The great mage Skias. They're the most popular. They said in a low voice. That doesn't make sense. Seo Junho's eyes went wide in surprise, and he looked at the seller with a confused expression. Doesn't Spectre's mask sell the best? Of course not. They're the fourth best. With a sour expression, Seo Junho looked at the other items that were for sale. The collection of masks wasn't complete. Well, the other heroes' masks have their faces on them, but we don't know what Spectre looks like. All we can do is sell this black mask. Of course the kids wouldn't like them. But they're cool. The black masks, I mean. T/N he's so petty. Well, kids like things that look pretty. I would like a mask. Seo Junho bought for Spectre masks and carried them in his arms. My original mask looks really cool though. He made his way to the back of the museum and found the door. After it scanned his iris, he had the Soul History Museum all to himself. Wow, they put these on display? Inside the museum, there were monster models. Hides and bones, along with battle gear from famous players of the past. Seo Junho walked around casually, looking at the display cases, and arrived in front of the morgue. Iris scan successful. Door is opening. As soon as the door opened, white smoke began to flow out. This chill, this feeling. The morgue felt eerily similar to the Frost Queen's nest. I suppose it's because they wanted to preserve the ice statues. He didn't feel good about it. It seemed that his comrades couldn't escape from the Frost Queen's grasp, even in death. He reached the center of the morgue and stared hard at the four statues. The Great Mage, Skya Killiland. The King of Destruction, Ramadat Kali. The Grey Envoy, Gilbert Green. The Sky Phoenix, Tenmei Mio. They were his comrades, his reliable friends. I'm sorry I'm late. He'd carried out his promise 3 days ago, after 25 years. He'd never thought that he'd keep it in this way. Seo Junho sat on the cold ground. Do you guys know? The world has gotten a lot better. Have you heard of the self-driving taxi? He explained the piece they'd brought together. He wasn't great with words, but he used his hands to explain every single detail. It's the peace we dreamed of. Even though it wasn't true peace, they'd saved humanity and the world. So please, my work is done, right? I can rest now, right? Seo Junho pressed his lips together, unable to say the words. Because if he did, he felt like he'd be admitting that it was the end. His friends were stuck in time forever in ice, and it seemed like only he was given that time back. Have a drink. He pulled a bottle of alcohol from his inventory and poured a bit in front of each of his teammates. Only a little bit for Mio and Skya, who didn't drink well, and plenty for the 2 others. He poured the rest down his throat. Feeling more awake, he put 1 mask in front of each statue. Take it with you. I've done a lot of good deeds, so they'll give you the VIP treatment in heaven too. He finished soothing his friend's spirits. Still feeling some lingering regret, Seo Junho dusted the ice statue's shoulders. Hey, don't go around looking dirty like that. Tap, tap. He brushed the dust off their shoulders without a second thought. Effect of the skill Frost EX has been checked. Seal of Frost EX can be removed. Your base magic stat is not high enough. Removal failed. His eyes widened as he read over the 3 lines. What? As if he was possessed, Seo Junho touched the ice statue again. The same message popped up. But his mind was already racing. I can remove the seal. Me? Diagu had said that the ice couldn't be melted even with the current technology or player skills. But he could. The Frost skill. He'd acquired the skill from the Frost Queen's nucleus.
Ha!
F.
Ha!
Taking deep breaths to calm himself, Seo Junho fell deep in thought. He'd have to check his current stats before he did anything else. Status window. As soon as he muttered the words, a small hologram window appeared. It is one of the abilities the system gave to the players. Seo Junho. Level 1. Title, The One Who Opens Spring. Strength, 21 Stamina, 24. Speed, 26 Magic, 18. Frost, EX, Watchguard of Darkness, S, Hunter's Knight, A, Hero's Mind, A, Weapon Mastery, A. Keen Intuition, B. Original abilities have been drastically reduced. Original abilities will be restored as time passes and as you level up. He glanced at the special status section, and his eyes glimmered with hope. He had the Frost, EX, skill. This is the key. The key to saving his friends. Not only that, it had skipped right over the S grade to be an EX grade skill. Diagu always said that S grade was the highest. If Korea's Player Association believed that, that probably meant that he was the first one to ever have such a skill. But the system said that my magic stat is too low to remove the seal. He looked closer at his status window. Tisk. He dropped from level 80 and his stats were depressingly low. But it wouldn't be that way forever. I'll be able to restore them. Of course, it wasn't something he'd be able to do in a day or two. His keen intuition skill told him that. T/N girl, I can tell you that without a special skill. My magic is 18? Is this on purpose? He laughed until his chest hurt, remembering all the times his low magic stat had gotten in his way. Magic is always the problem. He tried supplements and magic boosting items, but his low magic stat always made things harder. He let out a long, frustrated sigh and spotted something. Huh? The One Who Opens Spring. He recalled that he'd received the title when he defeated the Frost Queen. He'd been a player for 5 years, but that had been the first title he'd ever received. When Skya created magic for the first time, she received the title Amaja's First Steps. He remembered her boasting about getting 15 extra magic stat points and being able to cast spells faster. Either way, I think you can only get them from doing near impossible tasks. I should check the effects. Check title, The One Who Opens Spring. Whoosh. A new section popped up below the status window.